Good morning. Today we're going to be looking at Section 2, Resolving Union and Management Differences. So the first thing we're going to look at is union arrangements. Basically what we're looking at are the various ways that workers have organized themselves to be able to more effectively bargain or negotiate with their employers. So let's look at these arrangements. The first option is a closed shop. If you want to get a job where there's a closed shop arrangement, you have to agree to join the union. If you don't want to join the union, then they will not hire you. So you are required to join the union for this one. We don't see as many closed shop because of the Taft-Hartley Act. The Taft-Hartley Act basically says if a business does interstate trade, they cannot require the workers to join a union. So that's part of the reason why we have less closed shops. The second type of arrangement is a union shop. When you have a union shop, in order to get the job with the company, you don't have to belong to the union initially, but they do set a time period where you must join the union after you've been employed for a set amount of time. So it might be, for example, they give you a 3-month probationary period, and during that probationary period you don't have to join the union, but when that probationary period ends, they may make you join the union if you want to be able to keep your job. So that would be our second type, union shop. Our third type is a modified union shop, a little bit different. In terms of this arrangement, if you want to get a job with the company, you don't have to belong to the union to get your job. They won't make you join, it's voluntary. But if you do choose to join the union, then you must stay part of the union for as long as you hold that job. So you have the choice if you want to belong to the union or not, but if you choose to belong to the union, then you are now in that union till you leave that job. The last type of arrangement is an agency shop. This one is very different than the ones we looked at before. You don't have to join the union to get the job, but you do have to pay some type of dues or a fee if you don't join the union, and then that fee goes to pay for collective bargaining costs. It's expensive to hire somebody to represent the workers when they go to negotiate with the employers. So what the agency shop does is it charges a fee to the non-members of the union so that they have to help pay for that person to go into collective bargaining. Because in the end, whether or not you belong to the union or not, you're going to benefit from whatever agreement has been negotiated between the collective bargaining of the employees and the employers. So the expectation is if you're going to benefit from it, then you should also have to pay something towards that process that you benefit from, because it would be unfair if only the union members paid for the collective bargaining, but yet the non-union members got all the benefits from it. There would be no reason to join the union. It actually would incentivize not if you didn't have to pay for it, but yet you got all the benefits from what the union does with collective bargaining. So that's an agency shop. So those are our 4 types of union arrangements. And then unions together, they will work with their employers to come up with some type of agreement that both sides can go along with, and that's known as collective bargaining. That's when the workers and the employers, they come together and hammer out their differences. They also set what grievance procedures will look like. So if there's any issue that comes up for the employer or the employee, it tells them this is the path that you must follow to resolve whatever problem exists. So let's then look at the 5 ways that if the grievance process doesn't work, how can they go about resolving their differences? The first way that they can resolve their differences is through mediation. When you have mediation, you bring in a third-party mediator to help settle the dispute. They're going to be non-biased, and they're going to look at both sides of the issue, and they're going to come up with some type of a recommendation that both sides could potentially agree on. When you have a mediation, what the mediator proposes as a good settlement, it does not have to be enforced, both sides would have the ability to choose whether or not they like the settlement. That's what makes it different than our second way of resolving differences, which is arbitration. When you have arbitration, you have that mediator come in that looks at both sides, but the difference with mediation versus arbitration, whatever that third party mediator decides this is the best way to resolve, that's what happens. There's no choice with the employer and the employees that they can say, oh, we don't like that. Their decision is final. It makes arbitration a little bit dangerous to either side because they don't know which direction the mediator is going to favor. So they're stuck with it. So mediation is a lot safer than arbitration. Our third way to resolve difference is fact-finding. This is more similar to mediation, where they bring in a neutral third party. And just kind of as the name indicates, the job of that third party is to investigate and collect all the facts and present them to the sides. Usually you see this when one side does not believe the other side is being honest and may be exaggerating either their demands, or if it's the employer, how much money they have or what they can financially do with regards to benefit. But similar to a mediator, the recommendation of the fact finder is not binding. They don't have to go along with it. It just is something that they can consider. So fact finding and the mediation is more similar since they don't have to go along with whatever recommendation was given, as opposed to arbitration, where whatever decision is made by that mediator, it is binding for both sides. The next two ways that differences between the unions and employees and the employers can be resolved are much more extreme. The fourth one for resolving differences, or way they can resolve differences, is injunction and seizure. You might have learned about this in your government classes. When you have an injunction, it's a court order either to either side that they have to stop some type of an action. So it can tell the union they're not allowed to strike, or it can tell the employer that they cannot lock out their employees. Then we have a seizure, where the government will take over operations and basically allow the government to get involved and help to negotiate with the union. We don't usually see these except if it is in an industry that when it shuts down, it has a very negative impact on the entire economy and can cause major disturbances in the American economy as a whole. So this would be, you read in your book, the coal industry, when we were powered by coal and coal workers went on strike. It would be the same thing as if all of our refineries for gas stopped and we weren't able to buy gas. Then you might see the government getting more involved, because it would definitely slow and potentially cause great disruption to the American economy. The most extreme way that we can see the government involved is through presidential intervention. The president has an option. He can publicly, or she can publicly appeal to the sides to kind of pressure them into coming up with some type of an agreement. Or if it is a job where there are federal workers, they can actually get involved and fire federal workers and then hire workers who will actually go to work. The most extreme way that we see presidential intervention is through the president's emergency power to end a strike. And again, similar to injunction and seizure, we would only see this in a case where if the workers didn't go back to work and the company open up, if they had locked out, the entire American economy would be at a disadvantage. For example, you read about this in your book. This applied to air traffic controllers when they went on strike. When we don't have air traffic controllers working, then we can't have planes landing or taking off. And it isn't just for travel, but for movement of goods, it all came to a stop. And with that consequence to the American economy being so extreme, the president got involved and got those workers back on the job. So that's our last type of resolving differences. So that pretty much takes care of section 2. And I'll check in with you tomorrow with section 3.